Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this strange Friday? We have earthquakes in New York.
Amazing. I never felt an earthquake before. It's the first time. I didn't know what it was. I thought a big truck was going by or something. The house started shaking.
Yeah.
It shook for like 5 seconds, and I said, wow, that's not a truck. That's an earthquake.
Yeah, no, it was weird because when it felt like really strong winds, and it kept shaking and shaking. It was a very, very weird experience. We do not have earthquakes anywhere near here.
First time I ever felt one in my life, earthquake.
It's something like this happens about once every 100 years.
Yeah.
So
we had a little aftershock just recently.
About
an hour
20
ago.
minutes
20
ago.
minutes ago. Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. But let's talk some sports today because there's a lot to get into. A lot of controversial topics, which we'll get on later on in the show. But let's start with the breaking news that happened earlier this week, which is Stefon Diggs has now become a member of the Houston Texans. This is a pretty fascinating one because of the fact that really what we saw the past couple seasons was Stefon Diggs not very happy with Josh Allen and how the Buffalo Bills, how their season has turned out. Really, in the playoffs, we saw him very frustrated in the Bengal game. They're barking back and forth. People are saying, or Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen both saying everything is okay. So I want to know, let's start with our second topic on our block today. I want to know, how would you grade this trade between the Houston Texans and the Bills? What would you give the Texans acquiring Stefon Diggs?
I give them an A-.
A minus.
Yeah,
okay.
A-. I think they wound up with quite a bit, actually. I mean, they got Stefon Diggs. They gave up a second-round pick for him, and it's not till next year, right? So that's pretty good. They're not giving up anything this year. They lost the 24th. The Bill. Let's see. They also got the 24th sixth round and 25th fifth round.
Yeah.
Right. So they get 3 draft picks. They get Stefon Diggs and 2 draft picks. The Bills got their second-round pick, but it's not till next year. So I think that's a nice haul for them. And they managed to renegotiate Stefon Diggs' contract, so he's really a one-year player with a lot to play for to be a free agent in 2025. So unless they wind up extending him.
Yeah.
But at 22, they wind up with him for $22.5 million. Most of it guaranteed. All of it's guaranteed with most of it a signing bonus.
Yeah.
So I think they did well. I thought it was a good trade. This guy, though, he's got a little bit of a head case.
You think?
I think the Bills, I think some of it was emotion and getting rid of him. I'm not sure they were thinking, about wins and losses as much as they were thinking, this guy's a pain in the rear end. We're getting rid of him.
Yeah. I think, and we literally talked about this, I think, the next day, because we were doing the over-unders for the season. We both had the Texans on the over 9.5. I think
for sure now.
I think this secures it. And actually, for the past 2 seasons, because last offseason, there were a lot of very small moves. They weren't massive moves like A-plus moves or A moves. There were a lot of B-plus moves and really B-graded moves that led to a 10-7 season when I think their over-under for last season was 6.5. And I said, this team will win at least 7 games after coming off that 13-1 season. They drafted the right quarterback in the draft. They got piece around him. Nico Collins had a phenomenal year. But, and I'm going to say this up front, I think this is an A move for the entire team, not only for the offense. On the offense, some of their key playmakers, I'm going to show it right now, this is a very good roster.
Yeah.
It's a very deep roster. Joe Mixon, running back. Stefon Diggs, wide receiver 1, Nico Collins, who had his best season, Tank Dell, a very promising year 1 season before he got hurt, Robert Woods, very competent receiver, and Noah Brown had 2 100-plus games, 150-plus receiving yard games last season. Dalton Schultz, we all know what he did in Dallas 2 years ago, and he had a very productive season last season. So for me, this is a massive move, and I'm looking at the Jets, I'm looking at the Texans, I'm looking at the Chargers even. I think they could be very good on offense. They're doing ground and pound, which Justin Herbert might fall off a little bit. But I think the Chiefs, even with just Mahomes and Kelsey, the Dolphins, there's a lot of good offenses in the AFC. I'd put this Texans team up against any one of those offenses. And if C.J. Stroud doesn't have a massive sophomore breakdown, this team is they are very, very... They have a very, very good shot at that number 1 overall seed.
No, their offense was 12th last year. it's going to be better than that this year for sure. I would think.
I would bet on that.
Joe
100%.
Mixon's a nice pickup, right? I think he's a great pickup, and they're hanging on to almost all the wide receivers that they had last year. And Nico Collins had a great year. He had 80 receptions, so 1,200, almost 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think they're pretty much set. We'll see how the chemistry works, though. I mean, the Stefon Diggs there for 1 year.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a little bit of a gamble, I think, when you pick him up. But he's got talent, and you look at what he did in Buffalo. I mean, he was one of the top receivers in the leagues 4 years in a row. He was number 1 in catches, 445, second most yards, 53, almost 5,400 yards. Second in TDs, 37. Only Tyreek Hill was better than him. So he had really good last 4 years. He had over 100 catches in every year. But, his production fell off as the Bills started going away from him after they fired, who was the guy? Dorsey, right? Yeah, they fired him. And
Joe Brady became
the OC, and they kind of moved away from Diggs. He only had 34 catches after that. And 1 touchdown, I think. So, they were moving away from him during the year.
Yeah.
During the year last year. And I guess we're going to go back and talk about the Bills and how it affects them.
Yeah.
But do you have anything more you want to say about the Texans piece of this?
Yeah. First off, I don't and I'm going to say this up front. Teams that have young quarterbacks or are looking to get quarterbacks, this is how you let a young quarterback succeed. These are the types of moves that help young and growing quarterbacks. In the most crucial year, which is the year 1 to year 2 jump, you want to keep improving your offense to help improve your quarterback to have him be there long-term, for long-term success. This is how you do it. You create B+ to B, even B- moves. You can't fail on offense. Then have a quarterback come in and try to save the entire franchise in year 1 or year 2. It doesn't work. Mac Jones dealt with that. Complete chaos offensively. One of the worst wide receiver cores. They decide to sign a guy who's now is the 4-time reigning champ of the least amount of separation in the NFL. That was a great pickup. You decide to get a broken down Juju Smith-Schuster, sign a 5'8" slot receiver to be your main guy. Draft wide receivers in the 6th round and expect a quarterback who, by the way, in that from year 1 to year 2 jump, you hired incompetent and inexperienced coordinators to run the offense. That's not how you do year 1 to year 2. That's just not how you do it. This is how you build it. You get serious talent, draft young, promising weapons, and you do it early. Because the chances are that you're going to find a diamond in the rough in later rounds is basically zero. It has happened several times. But we're talking about a very, very small percentage. Very small percentage. Get them in between the first and 4 rounds, I would say. The last 3, 5, 6, and 7, you're basically going to get no talent there consistently.
No, I agree with you. I think that it's the right move for the Texans to build around C.J. Stroud early in his career. They don't have to give him an extension until 2027, right? So they can spend some money now. He can perform well with these good pieces around him, and I think they're a Super Bowl contender. They could very well be a Super Bowl. They added people on defense too. Yeah, they added a couple of linemen, Daniel Hunter and Danico Autry. So it's looking up for the Texans. Their fans got to be pleased.
And I'm going to say this: the Panthers did that this season slightly, getting Deontay Johnson in there. So they're trying their best with what they could possibly get. Which is not much.
Not much.
They also hired Dave Canales, who fixed what we expect to fix Baker Mayfield. That's what he did last season. They're hoping he does the same thing with Bryce Young in year 2. Let's see if that exactly happens. They signed, I believe, Derek Brown to a massive contract today. So I think it's 4 years, $96 million. So they're signing their best pieces, and they also have Jadeveon Clowney as well. They signed it. So they're doing some things, getting some acquisitions. Offensively, though, still don't like it. The offensive line, I think, is still a mess. Chuba Hubbard is not exactly going to be a dominant runner in the NFL, but he's okay. The Texans, on the other hand, C.J. Stroud, 5,000-yard season coming maybe this year. If everything works out beautifully, because their offensive line also isn't that bad. They still got Tunsil. They have Shaq Mason. They have a couple nice pieces. They're a deep team on offense now. Let's say Stefon Diggs has a down game or whatever. Then you have between I'm going to bring up the playmakers again because it's massive. You have if Stefon Diggs just out of the game entirely. Let's say they shut down Diggs. You have Collins, Dell, Woods, and Noah Brown, all capable receivers.
Mm-hmm. Mixon is a good receiver.
He's not. I mean, he's definitely not.
He had 112 receptions in 2 years with the last couple of years when he wasn't hurt. He got hurt last year, right?
Yeah.
But the 2 years before that, 112 receptions for the Bengals, so he can catch it too.
Well, I'll say this: Joe Mixon is definitely an upgrade over Devin Singletary.
Oh yeah.
And I'll say this: Devin Singletary had a couple nice games, a couple really good runs. I think Joe Mixon will be an upgrade. I think so. Like just the talent. If Stefon Diggs is out of the game, you have Collins who had his best year of his career. Okay, let's say somehow, some way they shut down the top 2 receivers. Tank Dell had a very good season, and he was a rookie. He did get hurt, but he was a very promising rookie.
Robert Woods is a good receiver.
Then you have experienced Robert Woods. And then you have Noah Brown, who, like I said before, had like an 84-yard game and then had 2 other games that he had over 150 yards. I think one of them he had 180-something yards in it. So they are a very deep offensive team. And then, like I said, Dalton Schultz is a very, very competent tight end who I think he was great in Dallas, had a pretty good season last year in Houston. So I think the Texans are going to be very, very deadly. They are a Super Bowl contender. C.J. Stroud is now, because midway through the year, he was vying for an MVP spot there. And I think he had a pretty decent shot with this amount of talent, with this Texans team growing at a 10-7. I expect C.J. Stroud will be, very deep in the MVP conversation, especially coming off last season, who there was really no secure MVP. The only reason why Lamar got it is because he beat Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy was leading the way, but Dak had better stats. And I know you're going to say yards per attempt or pass, whatever. Josh Allen had a great year. I think he had 4,400 yards. So there was no concrete MVP. I think this year we're going to see C.J. Stroud be the concrete MVP candidate.
Whoa.
By week 7. He's going to by week 7, I expect him to have a very, very solid case to say if he continues, he could dip a little bit, but if he continues on this trend, he's going to win his first MVP in only his sophomore season. So It's going to be fun to watch. Texans are going to be a great team, and I'm thinking, Trevor Lawrence is great. Texans are going to own this division moving forward. At least for this season. We'll have to wait. If they re-sign Diggs, who knows? Who knows? Let's get to the Bills side of this, though, because I do think it's important we talk about it. So this is interesting. So the Bills traded away Stefon Diggs for they got a 2025 second-round pick in return. They also take a $31 million cap hit, which is the 6th largest in NFL history, and it's the highest for any non-quarterback. The cap hit is for this next season. Diggs signed a reconstructed contract for about $22.5 million. But according to The Athletic's Tim Graham, it seems like the Bills really were fed up with Stefon Diggs' outrages at Josh Allen, directly at Josh Allen, in games, and then his brother Trayvon Diggs on social media said that you got to get him out of there, and called out Josh Allen for being nothing before Stefon Diggs got there. However, Stefon Diggs, when he did get traded, did post a very nice leaving letter on Instagram, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's going to take years to read, but you can read it if you'd like. So he was being very humble about it, taking no shots, thanking Bills Mafia, thanking the organization. A very, very kind message as he moves on to the Houston Texans. I want to know, I said this a year ago, and this was a topic I did on part of the show I did called the Harvey Hour, Fired Up, and people disagree with me. But right now, is the Super Bowl window shut after the Bills traded away Stefon Diggs?
No.
Ooh.
I don't think it's shut, okay? I think it might have been closed to be not quite as wide a crack as it was before. But, we haven't seen the Bills get very deep in the play. Well, they get to the divisional round, and then they fall apart now. And you look at what they've done the last 4 years with Stefon Diggs. They won 11 games each year. 4 straight years they went to the divisional round. But they've lost a lot of players. They lost Stefon Diggs now. Leonard Floyd, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tadarius White, Mitch Morse, Gabe Davis is gone, and Tim Settle. So it's going to be a big turnover there in terms of players. But they have one thing going for them, Josh Allen. Right? Josh Allen is still there. Josh Allen has some great stats the last 4 years. He has the most combined passing and rushing yards, rushing TDs for the past 4 seasons, 173. He has 17,540 passing yards. He's 63-30 in the time with Buffalo. So, and he's a top 5 quarterback. So you can build around him for sure. He's still young. I think maybe the Bills are looking a little beyond 2024 when they did this trade. They have this cap space issue with dead cap space for Diggs. But I think with the Chiefs and the Bills being the only 2 teams to win 11 games and reach the divisional round 4 straight years, the problem is the Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls and the Bills didn't win any. So their problem is not so much getting to the playoffs; it's getting to the big dance, and they haven't been able to do it. Their last title was in 1965, so it's been a while. I mean, they haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1993, so it's been a while. So they're figuring we got to do something different here, and we got the rabble rouser out of here, the guy who was making noise and unsettling our team. We've still got some options with. We got a 2nd-round pick, right? We've got the 28th overall first-round pick and the 60th pick. So, we can pick up some players here. And, by the way, Brandon Ayuk is out there, and so is T. Higgins. So maybe they make a deal to get one of those guys. So I don't see them being out of Super Bowl contention as long as they have Josh Allen, as long as they can, rebuild their defense a little bit, which I think needed a little bit of work. They shook it up a little bit. They still have Cook at their running back. He had a very good year last year. So they still have some pieces, and they have Josh Allen. So I don't think you can count them out totally.
I said it a year ago, and I'll repeat it again. The Super Bowl window is shut, closed, locked. The Bills will never win a Super Bowl under the Josh Allen era. I back then, a year ago, I think it was July a year ago, I said at the time that I think that Josh Allen is under the most pressure because the amount of talent he had, the farthest that they got, the fact that, it's about time they win it, and they didn't. They lost in humiliating fashion with a missed field goal, and then the Chiefs they did what the Chiefs usually do with Patrick Mahomes. There's a little bit of a shocking revelation outside of Diggs. I'm going to show the stats right now. Josh Allen is a completely different quarterback without Diggs in his entire career. These are the numbers. 48-18 record compared to 15-13. So it's still over 500, but the separation is massive. Completion percentage is 9 percentage points difference, 65 to 56. Passing yards per game is about 80 difference, 265 to 184. Touchdowns to interceptions, it's a 137 and 57 with, and 30 and 21 without. That is that's a pretty massive gap. In the ratio, it's about a 1 more touchdown to interception ratio. It's 2.4 to 1.4. Then the passer rating is also a massive gap, 96.9 compared to 78.2. Josh Allen is an entirely different quarterback without Stefon Diggs, and he's not a good quarterback without Stefon Diggs. The farthest they got pre-Stefon Diggs was losing in the wild card, and it wasn't even that good of a wild card game. I think that was the game where Josh Allen tried to, lateral it, and it was the ugliest lateral I've ever seen, and just a dumb decision all around. And add on top of that, you have Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, which is not a bad wide receiver too, and Mac Hollins. Those are your 3 wide receivers. You do have 2 good tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, perfectly capable tight ends, but overall, the Buffalo Bills, I think, are screwed. And I said they're under, and that was when they had Stefon Diggs still. They had a 10.5 win total. I said, don't be surprised if they go 10-7, or shocked they're only go 9-8. I think that's more likely now today, obviously. Now, they could go draft several receivers, which I'm sure they might do. They have a late round pick. I believe they have the 28th pick in the draft. I want to fact check that. They have the 28th pick. And I think now the fact that they got rid of Diggs, look at A.D. Mitchell from Texas. That he might go there. Xavier Worthy, they might pick up. There's a couple receivers late in the first round, which could be perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. But will they replace what Stefon Diggs was and the chemistry, even though I think towards the very end it became sort of toxic? Can one of those rookie receivers simulate the chemistry that, Allen and Diggs had? Probably not, because that takes 4 years to do, or that at least takes a year to do. So I don't think in any sort of realm of possibility we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills in February saying in Super Bowl 59 in Louisiana, I believe it is in New Orleans, that they're going to be competing for a Super Bowl title against, most likely, if we had to pick, the 49ers. That's probably the team. They might go back there, but we're not talking about the Bills team going back to the Super Bowl. In my mind, that just can't happen.
Okay, well, you've got some interesting stats there, Nate, but let me point out a few others, okay?
Sure.
So after Dorsey was fired, right? They went away from Diggs more. Did not have the last 7 games. He had 34 catches, 315 yards, and 1 TD after Dorsey was fired, right?
Okay.
The final 7 games, the Bills went 6-1, right? So how did that happen? They kind of went away from Diggs.
I'll tell you exactly.
And they had a lot of success. They had a lot of success.
Yep.
They were winning when limiting Diggs.
Right.
And Allen was still very productive, right?
Sure.
He still has. They still have Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid and James Cook. They still got some players on offense.
I'm not denying that.
And I think they set themselves up well for the next couple of years. They get off the contract of Diggs, which had 4 more years to go on it. So after this year, when the cap space lightens up a little bit, they have some picks in next year. So I think they'll be a contender this year. Will they win the Super Bowl? Maybe not. Will they get deep in the playoffs? Probably get to the divisional round. They seem to be able to do that, but they had to shake things up. They had to do something different. Right, because they weren't getting there. Look at what the Chiefs did with 11 wins and 4 straight years going to the divisional round. Sure. They got 2 Super Bowl wins.
Correct.
The Bills got none, so they had to do something different. Maybe it's the coaching.
Could be the coaching.
Could be the coaching. You look at what the Chiefs did to the Bills there in that game where there was just a fraction of a second left and
13 seconds.
13 seconds left.
And I think they had 2 or 3 timeouts.
And
they guarded the sideline middle of the field.
Yeah, and the coaching was abysmal. The last 13 seconds, as Bill Belichick says, it's a 60-minute game. You got to play every second of it. You got to be coaching out there every second.
Yeah.
The Bills weren't in that game. And McDermott, they got to believe they were thinking about whether they should hang on to him at the end of this season with what happened. So some of it could be the coaching. But I think that stats are interesting there, but they're over a long period of time. I think if you look at what happened just recently in the last season and how Josh Allen and the Bills played when Diggs was limited, they don't feel like they lose that much by getting rid of him.
I'll tell you why. Because they never. Are you including the playoffs in those last 7 games? Or are you saying the last 7 games of the regular season?
7 games of the regular season.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you exactly why. They ran the ball incredibly well. They didn't have less than 100 rushing yards in each of those games.
Well, maybe that's a better formula for them.
And they had sub 100 rushing yards in 4 of those first 10 or so games before they fired Ken Dorsey. So they ran the ball much better. James Cook and everybody else had a tremendous rushing attack, including Josh Allen. But the the massive question, we see this even with Lamar Jackson, is in the playoffs, it's all up to him. It's all up to the quarterback. Josh Allen is making these big-time plays, and we saw some stupid plays, really some stupid plays throughout the season, rolling to his right, trying to throw it into the end zone, and Gabe Davis wide open on the left side of the field. He threw it right. Gabe Davis went left. Lack of communication there. He's gone as well. The Bills have suffered massive losses, and you pointed it out. Like, these are some big-time losses. Defensively, you're losing some of your top guys. Offensively, your first 2 receivers, gone. A very, very good center, Mitch Morse, gone. Like, this offense is really depleted. And on top of that, you are building this team to get far. This team was supposed to be built to beat the Chiefs, beat the Bengals, beat whoever you meet in the playoffs. And on top of that, with Josh Allen, you were supposed to be out going for championships and Super Bowls. You could barely make it past the wild card. So they had a great end of the season run. Yes, I think Joe Brady did a perfectly fine job executing a new style offense, a new vision of offense, and getting themselves the number 1 spot in the AFC East after the Miami Dolphins seemed to have that pretty much on lock. And lo and behold, you're able to pull it out. But this season's going to be different. I think the Bills are taking a massive step back. I think the Jets have a serious shot at winning the AFC East. The Dolphins, I think, are going to remain at that 2 spot. The Patriots, like I said, they're going 6-11. I don't expect much from them, even with the rookie quarterback. Even if they trade back or draft the best player in the draft with the number 3, or if they trade with the Vikings 11-23. But I seriously think the Bills are going to take a not massive regression. They're going to regress to a point where there's a serious question whether or not they're even going to make the playoffs. And then if they do make the playoffs, and let's say they go 10-7 or 9-8, we're going to be debating whether or not they're going to make it past the wild card, like they did pre-Diggs. The year before they got Diggs, they lost in the wild card. We're going to be at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you on.
My main thing about that is that Josh Allen's going to go back to playing Superman. And
he's been doing that.
That's where he makes his mistakes. Is when he tries to be Superman.
There's a point I was going to make. He has some great stats. He's a number 5 quarterback. He's been in the talk for the MVP, but he makes mistakes that he shouldn't make, and he gets too hyped up in the games.
Yeah.
He gets all wound up, and he fumbles or he throws an interception, and it makes him worse. He can't put it behind him. He goes out there and tries even harder.
He tries to make up for that mistake.
He tries to do too much, and then he pulls the ball down and runs, and he takes some big hits. One of these days, he's going to get hurt. So he's got that going against him. But I still think with him and some of the other pieces they still have, it's still going to be competitive. It's still going to be competitive, and maybe they don't get to the Super Bowl because they haven't been able to do it 4 years in a row now. While the Chiefs have won 2 out of the 3 there, getting 2 out of the 4. I think that I do think they'll still be competitive.
I'm going to state this once again. I said this last year. The Bills will not win a Super Bowl under the Josh Allen era. I said it last year, and so far I've been proven right.
Yeah.
And with this,
still got a long way to go. He's not even 30 years old yet.
And here's something
he won't be
that
30 until he's 2026.
I know. No, I'm fully aware. But what people are saying, this is addition by subtraction. No, it isn't. Yeah, you got maybe a guy who's a little bit petty in the locker room, but the talent on the field speaks for itself. This is a guy who was getting a bunch of receptions and massive production and rightfully so, made Josh Allen a much better quarterback. Without him, we kind of know what Josh Allen looks like. He's not a good quarterback. Barely above 500. This season's going to be interesting, and maybe they get a rookie receiver and he has a Tank Dell season or whatever the case may be. But as it's currently constructed, the Bills are screwed. All right, coming up, we have a great topic, and oh God, Gilbert Arenas is back in the news. This time, calling Nikola Jokic the worst MVP winner in 40 years. Oh Lord! And also, former Packers and Chiefs wide receiver Marquez Vales-Scantling is supporting Aaron Rodgers after he keeps being labeled a diva by the media. We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So Gilbert Arenas went on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast, and he called Nikola Jokic the worst MVP winner in 40 years. Take a listen to his amazing take.
Jokic is probably statistically, when it comes to overall game, the worst MVP winner. He is the worst MVP winner in the last 40 years. When you're talking about MVP, the guys outside of first and second place, their teams was first and second place. The people who won the MVP, their teams was first and second. When Jordan won it, his team record, they were 7th in the NBA. That year, he averaged 35, 6, 5, 3 steals, All-Star MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, scoring title, steals leader. That was the MVP. Historic year. Makes sense. When Jokic in 2021, Jokic's team was 5th. He averaged 26, 8, and 10. What was the historic part of that?
Is there any credibility? Gilbert Arenas' comment.
0. Come on. Ranking the MVP based on the team wins in the regular season. I mean, Jokic won. He won the MVP when he won the NBA championship. That's what counts. Whether you win the NBA championship or not.
Well,
I mean, the wins.
It's not Finals MVP. It's league MVP.
I understand that. I understand that, but he did win the league MVP. He did win the league championship.
So it solidifies the fact that
for me that he's rightfully so the MVP. And look at how he plays. He's a unique player, right? He leads his team generally in assists, rebounds, and shooting. He shoots a 3-pointer well. He can shoot his foul shots. I mean, Arenas is making a big deal about Giannis not getting 3 MVPs in a row. Well, because Larry Bird did that, and they didn't want him to have that. They only want Bird to be the 3-time winner, 3 in a row. That's BS. I don't buy that. And I look at Jokic. He's a unique player. He's a point center.
Yeah.
In a way, you never see that. You've never seen that. He doesn't look like a great player, but he can hit his shots. He's smart. He makes everyone around him better. Look at that team. Do they have anybody great besides him? Would you say?
Jamal
Murray is good. I agree with you, but that's 2 players. Generally, teams that win the NBA championship have 3 really good guys. And I would say the Denver Nuggets last year, aside from him, who did they have? They had Murray, right? And the way they played, I think Arenas is totally wrong, basing it on regular season wins and whether you're 1 or 2 going into the playoffs. I don't think that matters to me. That doesn't mean much of anything.
Well, he's making a big thing about, Jordan, his team was, 10th in the NBA. Yeah, we never care about the total NBA statistics. What are you in your conference? That's the first thing we look at. For instance, if Jason Tatum won the MVP this year, it's a nice feat when you say the Celtics were the best team in the NBA. We never go down the standings and say, the Denver Nuggets were 10th in the NBA. No, we say, what are they? They're 6th in the conference. That's what we say about that. And I'm surprised, actually, because if he's bringing up Jordan's 35 points per game stat, what about doing it back in 1987 when Magic Johnson won, averaging only 23.9, but he also had 12 assists? Michael Jordan had 37 points per game. And if he's talking about, the Bulls were 10th when he won his MVP with 35 points, the Bulls were 14th in the NBA that season. However, they were 3rd, I believe, when he won that 35-point-a-game MVP. They were 3rd in the Eastern Conference, because I care about the conference team record first before I care about the total NBA record. Since 1987, there have been 37 MVPs. 26 of them were the 1st seed in their own conference. 5 of them were the 2 seed, 4 of them were the 3 seed, and 2 were the 6 seed. One of those 6 seeds was Nikola Jokic winning his 2nd MVP. That 2nd MVP is very, very fascinating because he actually was better than his 1st MVP. He had 3 more rebounds and about 0.7 more points per game. He had a few like minuscule points, assists per game fewer. But in that 2nd MVP, he was the only player that was top 10 in points, rebounds, and assists. And he also became the only player in NBA history for a single season to have 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists. Correct. He was close to a triple-double. And that's historic. Now, how about actually setting history? How about actually doing something historic, like becoming the only player in a singular season to have 2K, 1K, and 500. Yes, his points per game were only 27. And that first MVP, he only had 26. Would you believe that there were 13 people in that 37 MVP span to have fewer points per game than Nikola Jokic's first MVP? And by the way, he brings up that Giannis thing. Giannis should have won more. Giannis should have won 3P. He actually was only 4th in MVP ranking that year. So it's not like he was number 2 and barely lost. No, he was 4th. Joel Embiid actually had more MVP voting points than Giannis. Steph Curry had more first-place votes than Giannis. Chris Paul had more first-place votes than Giannis in his, should-have-been 3rd straight MVP. If people are complaining, and people do complain about this, then why does Steve Nash win 2 in a row? He had less than 20 points a game, which out of the past 37 is the lowest points per game out of the last 37 MVPs. Yet people think, oh yeah, Shaq probably should have won one of those. But he didn't. He didn't. So I despise this take because it literally makes no sense. This might be one of the worst NBA takes ever. And I think he's serious.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I think he's serious.
That's what scares me.
Crazy.
He's serious about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And
no
he tried
basis.
to insinuate that the reason Giannis didn't get 3 in a row is because they didn't want Larry Bird upstage.
He wasn't even in
it.
second place.
And that's why Jokic got it, because they didn't want to give it to Giannis for the 3rd time, but he was 4th in the MVP voting that year. That's ridiculous.
Chris Paul in 5th place had more first place votes than Giannis that year.
And then the other time he won,
Jokic
they saying
had 91%.
Westbrook should have got it because Westbrook had averaged a triple-double that year. I don't think that, to me, the MVP...
By the way, Russell Westbrook, his triple-double season, I think that's when he broke Oscar Robinson's record.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder were 6th in the Western Conference that season.
Yeah. So, to me, the MVP is the guy who makes everybody around him better.
Jokic definitely does that.
Jokic is better at that than anybody.
Yeah.
I think he given the team that the Nuggets have, and when the way they won it last year, he made everybody around him better.
Yeah.
And when he had to make the play, he did. He did not choke at all. Yeah. He played great all the way through consistently. And to me, he was the MVP for sure. It was easy, hands down. And the other one he won too, I think he deserved that as well. And I bet you they win it again this year, he's going to get a 3rd. And he's going to get a 3rd.
Like minus 1,000 odds for him to win it this year. Because he deserves it. He's only averaging 26 points a game. Would you believe him? By the way, this is something that it's very, very impressive for Jokic. The efficiency he does it at. His first MVP, he shot 56%. There are only 2 people in the past 37 years that have a higher shooting percentage. That second MVP season, he shot 58%. 0 people have a higher shooting percentage than that Nikola Jokic performance. He broke Michael Jordan's record for player efficiency rating. He set the record for the highest box plus-minus in a single season. He led the league in triple-doubles. I mean, you could keep going on. You could keep going and going and going. He had more assists than Joel Embiid's MVP season by a large margin. He had 5.5 more assists, and he had 0.2 more rebounds. He shot the ball significantly better than Embiid last season. But here, there is no basis. This take is horrible. All doors, it's just a bad take because there literally is no, if you're just going to claim Michael Jordan's 35-point season, which was, Defensive Player of the Year, no one cares about All-Star MVP. 0 people care. But you can go down the list. Yeah, Michael, that season was great. It was phenomenal. But also, you should make the case for Michael Jordan's 37-point per game season. Make the case for that as well. The Bull and it actually strengthens your argument if you argue that, because the Bulls were 14th in the NBA that season. They only won 40 games though, sub 500 record. Yes, you could say
to me the regular season. You got to get into the playoffs, right? It helps if you're number 1 or number 2, right? Because you get the right seeding there, and you wind
play
up
the worst team.
You weigh the worst teams all the way through. But if you can get into the playoffs and then win the championship. I don't think the regular season wins mean anything.
Nikola Jokic in any of the MVP seasons was better than Dirk Nowitzki. Hands down better than overall player than Steve Nash. Kevin Garnett, he was better than Kevin Garnett. Tim Duncan, you look at the numbers, that second MVP season, he was better than Tim Duncan's both MVP years in 2002 and 2003. You go down these Hall of Fame lists. Nikola Jokic, you could combine the both of them, or just any individual one. You could say that any one of these MVP seasons were better than some. Like I said, 13 I would say about 13 who had fewer points per game than Nikola Jokic in that first MVP season.
Do you think the players think he's MVP? The players.
Yeah.
I know in one of the
LeBron James,
the All-Star,
everybody speaks very highly of Jokic.
The All-Star game. Remember the one where they had the two? Who was it? LeBron and was it Giannis? They were the coaches, and they picked.
That was last year. Not this past one. Last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah. And Jokic was the last pick.
Yeah.
Were they sending some sort of message there? I wonder. What do the players think about Jokic? Do they think he's the best?
They think highly of him, as they should, because who can match up against the Nuggets?
I think they're going to win it again.
The Celtics have not beaten. Sorry, there are two.
The Celtics lost both games, at home and on the road to the Nuggets.
Now, here's why I say it. I don't think the Celtics will lose to the Hornets late in this season. I don't think they will. So basically, the Nuggets are the only team that will shut them out by the end of the season. Only team. That's why I'm saying, we think, Denver's great. I think they're the number 2 seed or 3 seed right now. Because OKC is great and Minnesota's great. But, in a 7-game series, who could beat this team? There's no matchup for Jokic.
Yeah, I agree.
No one that can just completely shut him down and make him literally useless. Because if he doesn't score, he could rebound and pass the ball extremely well.
Mm-hmm. He's a point center.
If he needs to, he could take over a game and drop 35 points.
Yeah. No problem. They don't win that way. And he's recognized that.
Yeah.
If most teams will try to make him do that, right?
Yeah.
They'll try to shut down everyone else and let him have his points, because when they do that, they don't win. But he's smart enough to know he finds a way to get the other guys involved and make them better. And that's what an MVP does.
So, yep. As rightfully so. Rightfully so. The internet was on the side of this is probably the worst take maybe ever.
Let's just talk about Arenas for a few minutes. Okay?
Oh, God.
This guy is out there trying to make a name for himself by making outrageous comments. Right?
Sports media for you.
This is outrageous. He's on I was listening to his take. He's on there with the 4-letter words, swearing, and the other guys sitting around listening to him with incredulous looks on their faces. What's he talking about? I don't think they agree with what he's saying, but they didn't say too much against him because maybe he'd pick a fight, pick a fight with him or something. I don't know. But he had another outrageous comment, right? That we talked about. What was it? I'm trying to remember which one it was.
The Celtics have been an irrelevant franchise for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because they won their championship back in 2008.
He's trying to make a name for himself with these outrageous comments, and I think it backfire on him.
Oh no,
he just looks
this one 100%
looks like a fool.
Oh yeah,
and he's the polls on the internet are saying this, right?
Yeah.
That he didn't know what he was.
Oh yeah, you
about.
look up this comment, you see worst take, outrage, it's ridiculous. So let's keep it his name and media. Shannon Sharpe, I think he should have kept him accountable because you're arguing for Michael Jordan, who won that MVP back in 1988. Yet if you go down the list in more recent times when the NBA has actually evolved and the big man does more than rebound and take close shots, the more valuable aspect of it comes through a lot more because now you have big men who can not only just dunk it on your head and rebound.
Hit a three-pointer.
He could shoot the three. He like this season, for instance. This season he's shooting 34% for three, which for a big man is not terrible.
Not bad.
Not terrible. But
how many assists? How many assists a game is
9.
he getting? 9 assists a game.
But
and how many rebounds is he getting?
12.4.
And what's his point average?
26.5.
Hey, I'd love to have him on my team.
But also, here's the big thing. Giannis should have won, 3 times. Can't shoot free throws.
That's right.
He can't shoot threes as well. And Nikola Jokic, by the way, is shooting 58%.
Yeah, Giannis's game is driving to the hoop and just destroying everybody to get a layup.
He's very, very physical.
Or dunk. Yeah, he's just very physical.
He drives, tries to get free throws, and misses most of them.
Yeah.
He's like 65% free throw percentage, so it's not great. But another week, another outrageous take from one Gilbert Arenas. Let's go back to the NFL because Marquez Vales-Scantling, he's taking a little bit of accountability and calling out the people who are calling Aaron Rodgers a diva, and he said this recently about Aaron Rodgers. Man, he's one of the greatest you'll ever find. He cares more about his teammates than about the game of football. I think I think that's something that people don't really understand, because people get this perception of him that he's this diva or all about himself. That's the furthest thing from the truth. I want to know, do you think Rodgers is actually an underrated leader?
Well, I'll answer that in a second, but the
Go for
first
it.
thing I'll say is Scantling is sucking up to Rodgers, so he'll hopefully go to the Jets and say, bring Marquise Valdez-Scantling in here. And he has some basis for that, because Rodgers has been out there lobbying the Jets in the past for players that he'd like to have come play on the team, and Scantling is a free agent. So I think a lot of this has to do with, please bring me in to be a Jet. I want to be on the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. I don't have a job right now. I need a job. So I think he's sucking up to Aaron Rodgers in hopes that he'll go to the Jets and say, bring in Scantling. He can help us win. So that's first what I'd say. In terms of Rodgers as a leader, well, maybe he tried to show it on the Jets a little bit. They say that he was good in the locker room until he got hurt only 4 plays into the season. So it's still a little bit of a work in progress, I think, there. At Green Bay, I don't think anybody would say that he was a great leader, right? He never spent any time with the young receivers. He wasn't one to go out with the players after practice or anything. He was kind of aloof. He went on his what do they call that? Ayahuasca retreats. Was doing hallucinogenic drugs to kind of find himself. So a little odd, a little bit odd. Not what you normally get from somebody you think of as a top leader in the NFL. So I think that it's more Scantling sucking up to Rodgers, hoping he'll get the Jets to give him a contract that he needs, because he's a free agent without any suitors so far.
I completely agree with you. This is more so about campaigning to Rodgers like, hi, I'm still here. We used to play together. I went to the Chiefs for a quick minute, but now I'm back. I want to reunite with you. When it talks about being a leader, right? There's something that stands out in my mind a lot, and it happened not this past season, but the season prior with Rodgers when he was on when he was with the Packers, and he had all those new receivers, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Do we remember what happened with Christian Watson in Game 1 when he had that the drop pass on that deep ball on the right side of the field? He dropped it. It took him until Week 10 to really get involved again and have his first big-time game. Several games where it was one catch, 2 catches, 2 targets, 1 target. Rodgers would not get him involved. In order to get him involved, LaFleur had to draw up like jet sweep touch passes in order just to get Christian Watson some snaps, some catches, some route running, something. Because Rodgers didn't trust him anymore after 1 drop. That's not exactly a leader. If someone has a drop and he's a true leader, he'll keep giving him opportunities, trying to make the best for that receiver. Put him in the position to succeed with that receiver. It took Rodgers until Week 10 for him to genuinely put Christian Watson in the offense, and that's when he had 107 yards on 4 catches and 3 touchdowns. And then you see several games, nearly 50 yards in a number of these games, had another 100-yard game as well, had 200-yard games after that. So when it comes to that part of it, he focused on his guys, Lazard and Cobb. Those are the main 2 pieces. Didn't love Dobbs. Really, apparently, until Week 10, didn't love Christian Watson. So that's a problem. Also, being a leader, shouldn't you be there taking snaps with your team, getting reps with them? Instead, ayahuasca trips, not great, darkness retreats, contemplating retirement, making it kind of obvious that you want to retire, and you keep everyone in limbo about your status of retiring, and then you come back and say, okay, I'm back, let's play some football in like August. It's not exact, and we saw the result of that his last year in Green Bay. And also, his personality is, I know everything. I know more than you at least. So that type of mentality, it's not attractive. The Jets now look like they're willing to get off Lazard. They're bringing in their own guys. They're trying to help Rodgers out by getting some of those pieces like Mike Williams, bolstering that offensive line for a 40-year-old quarterback who's just coming off an Achilles injury. But the personality doesn't scream leader.
Well, to me, a top leader, somebody you can count on, somebody who's there for you, somebody who's a team player, somebody who's a winner. Aaron Rodgers came up pretty small when the bright lights were the brightest in the playoffs.
That's true.
Right? He did win one Super Bowl. We'll give him credit for that. But in more recent years, in the playoffs, he's made some bad mistakes that have cost his team. That game against San Francisco, right, and the terrible weather. When he's the bad weather player, Green Bay Packers are the when it's coldest they're the best. They got beat by the San Francisco 49ers, a West Coast team.
Jimmy G did not complete his first 7 passes, I believe.
And the Packers started out pretty well. They scored a touchdown, then they did nothing the rest of the game. Yeah, basically. Where were you, Aaron? That's on you. And the previous several years there, you got beat by Tom Brady, right? When they thought you were going to the Super Bowl that year. He's come up small in the last 5-6 years in playoff runs.
Oh,
and
it's longer than that, too.
Top leaders find a way to win. Look at Tom Brady.
7, 8, 9. How about this? In the past 10 playoff runs, he has a losing record. So 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, and 21 all ended with, embarrassing performances. So Rodgers, by the way, I think it's been 30-something games since Rodgers threw for 300 yards. It's been a long time. Mac Jones has thrown it a couple times.
It's a dink and dunker.
I'm not calling dink and dunk, but what I'm saying is he's not, taking over a game with his arm anymore.
He does have a couple of nice Hail Marys. I'll give him that.
No,
and the way he threw the ball straight up into the air.
But here's the thing, though. He throws it sometimes on his back foot, and it can go 50 yards.
Yeah, he's got an arm. There's no doubt about it. He flick his wrist, and the ball goes 40 yards. He's got the talent, that's for sure. I don't know, at 40 years old and coming back on one wheel, we'll see how he does. But there's one other thing I want to add here about Scantling.
Sure.
He was, I think, basically benched by the Chiefs late in the season after he dropped so many passes. And the one that would have won the game for them, a long pass, had it right in his hands and dropped it on like the 2-yard line. So I think maybe some teams are a little skeptical about his talent. And that's why he's still a free agent and hasn't gotten the contract. So now he's out there campaigning to his prior quarterback who gave wish lists to the Jets about who he wanted to have brought in a year before he even got there.
Scantling was not on that list, I don't believe.
Maybe not on that list, but now he's hoping he could just
he very well could.
Hey, bring him in here, Yeah. And probably you can get him pretty cheap. So maybe they will look at him. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I'll say this. You make a good point. He had a lot of drops with the Chiefs. Chiefs didn't trust him very well.
They benched him.
Well, here's the thing. Who also dealt with a lot of drops? The Jets did.
Yeah.
Alan Lazard had a horrible time catching the football. I think out of the qualified receivers, he had the lowest catch percentage in the NFL. He was not a good receiver, but it was Aaron Rodgers' GM, him basically, that campaigned to go get him. He tried to get Mercedes Lewis. He got what I call the mummified Randall Cobb. Oh. The fossilized Randall Cobb at this point. He did literally nothing. And those are Rodgers pickups. Now we could see, now here's what's fascinating. David Bakhtiari was released by the Green Bay Packers. Yet somehow Rodgers didn't campaign for him. Instead, they got Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith. Now, could they get him for depth? Maybe, but I think with the talent that Bakhtiari possesses, the fact that he's been a starter and a tremendous offensive lineman basically his entire career, that I don't think he would be a depth position. I'm pretty sure he'd be a starter. Would you move him to guard? Would you move one of those tackles to guard? Probably not. So it's interesting how, Bakhtiari was someone that Rodgers depended on to hold that Green Bay offensive line, and he did a pretty good job at doing it. And he's still looking for a job right now.
Yeah. Scantling says Rodgers, one of the greatest you'll ever find, cares about his teammates more than the game of football. He's not self-centered. Taught him a lot on and off the field. Great friend forever indebted to him. Advocate for mental health. Huh? He's an advocate for mental health. He's doing hallucinogenic drugs.
That's how he does it.
Yeah.
Find yourself.
Ayahuasca retreats, darkness retreats. Huh?
Yeah, that's how you find yourself. He's campaigning for
He knows how to approach life.
come crumbling down as we speak. So yeah, that's something. He said that.
Yeah. He said he's a
advocate of mental health.
Yeah, he says an advocate for mental health, and he knows how to approach life.
Well, that's something true. He knows exactly what he's going to do, and here's the thing: he's going to do it. That's the thing. He's on ayahuasca. He was on ayahuasca here with Jordan Poyer in this offseason. I wonder what his next darkness retreat's going to be. I'm curious. Maybe he's on it right now, and we're going to find out.
Well, I thought he was considering being a vice presidential candidate in the independent run for Robert F. Kennedy. Huh? I don't know. This guy
I thought there was supposed to be news about that.
There.
I don't know.
I haven't heard much about that. I don't think he's going there.
He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's probably going to be first ballot Hall of Fame. Tremendous thrower of the football. Lately, playoff success has been basically zero. And the last time we really saw him, he went 8-9, lost to the Lions, and missed the playoffs.
He's 40 years old, and he's coming off an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
We'll see.
However, the Jets did put him in a good position to succeed.
Yeah,
a better offensive line, add another weapon.
Yeah. I don't know what
Defense
more the Jets
great.
can do player-wise. I thought they'd done it all last year, too. But the offensive line turned out to be a sieve. So I don't know. They've got a good defense. They look like they've improved the offense. They ought to go out and get Marquise Valdez-Scantling to drop some balls for them, and maybe they'll be doing well. We'll see.
All right, that does wrap up this episode of today. What an episode. What a great episode. Tuesday, massive episode. We're doing Mock Draft 1.0. That's our top 10 picks of this year's NFL draft. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And, of course, if more breaking news comes up, as well as basketball, MLB, whatever
Go Red Sox.
comes up.
Go Red Sox.
So
5-2.
Yeah.
Starting on the road on the West Coast. Tough go of it, right?
Yeah.
Playing the Angels. That will show something. The Angels have started out okay. The Yankees, only one loss so far. They're starting out great. Aaron Judge starting to hit the ball a little bit more. The Sosa trade looks like Juan Soto trade looks like a win for them.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the baseball season. I will have to have a few takes on baseball here
after
they played more than 10 games or so, right?
Yeah. It's 162
Maybe
games.
do you think the Marlins going to win a game yet? They're 0-8 so far. The Mets 1-7, huh? So, man, poor the Mets. I don't know about them. I mean, we live right down the road from Citi Field. It'd be nice to have them be a winner and be able to root for them. I'm afraid I'm still rooting for the Red Sox.
Yeah, there we go. So, like I said, keep up with all the latest news in the sports world, and also stay tuned for the Mock Draft Tuesday. Mock Draft 1.0. It's the first 10 picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. We will break all of that down on Tuesday. But for this episode, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are the hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your Never Thought You'd Get This Far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.